Hey there, let's talk 22 Shimano Aldebaran. And here it is. I don't know if we rotated this. Oh, in the trees. In the trees, not uncommon for me. So this is the 22 Shimano Aldebaran. I've used this reel a ton at this point. I've used it on a handful of different rods too. You know, at this point I have a really good feel for my opinion of the reel. And I'll be honest, when I first started using it, I wasn't sold on it. I think it was the third reel that I'd picked up. So I had the Dark Wolf Ultra, I had the Daiwa Alphas Air, and then the Aldebaran. Really what I wanted to understand is like, okay, what am I getting if I move to sort of that next tier of BFS reels? And again, at first, I really didn't like it. It was difficult to dial in because of a couple key differences. The main one being, when you dial in the spool tension on the first couple BFS reels I'd use, you sort of dial it in to eliminate the side-to-side play, and you can hear it, right? You can hear the click, 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 click back and forth. For the Aldebaran, I don't know if it's because the way it's designed or it's just the tolerances are that tight. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear the shifting back and forth. So I'm like, I really don't know what to do. So really what I ended up doing is once I figured out to adjust it more like a traditional bait caster where I was paying attention to the rate of fall of the lure based on how the spool tension was. If it was just sort of a free fall, then that was too much. If it really didn't want to fall very quickly at all, in my experience, that wasn't quite enough. It had to have just sort of a controlled fall. Now, when it hit the ground or hit the water, it would still overrun the spool, but I felt like that was the best setting. Once I got this thing dialed in, I'll let you in on sort of the punchline. I could see me having an entire stable filled with just the Aldebaran at this point. Maybe there are other reels that I'm going to come across that I like better. It is pricey. I paid around $350 for it, so it's not a cheap reel, right? It's not like the $70 or $80 AliExpress reels that you get. For that matter, it's not even just a $200 reel. It is expensive, relatively. I mean, there are $600 and $1,000 reels too, right? So, you know, so it's just not, you know, it's not an easy one to go and pick up 5 of them. Let me put it that way. I could pick up 5 Dark Wolf Ultras for one of these. As I really started getting it dialed in, it just became such an amazing reel. And it's a reel that I can forget that I'm really using it and just focus on the fishing, which is what I'm always trying to do. The other reason that it took a little while to get dialed in is the brake dial. The brake dial goes to 5. At the lowest setting of, I think it's 1. The lowest setting is 1. It looks like it goes 1 to 6. At the lowest setting of 1, that's 0 brakes. Like there's, as I understand, there's no impact to the spool from the brakes. Now, so you tighten the spool up more, you thumb it, sort of like an old school bait caster. That probably gives you the utmost control and casting distance that you're going to get. I don't have those kind of skills. I haven't even tried to get down to that level because it just doesn't make enough sense to me. What I found is when I had it on the Limerin Wind Shadow, I was running the brake somewhere around 2 to maybe 2.2, somewhere around there, just 1 or 2 clicks up from 2. Each little click on this reel makes a huge difference in braking in my experience. One click on this reel makes a huge difference. It's not like a lot of the other ones that I've been using. Versus, you know, the Daiwa products that I've used, you can do 2 or 3 clicks and there's sort of a difference, but it's not like this amazing step from one to the other. The Dark Wolf Ultra, again, there's like 2 or 3 clicks of range that you get about the same performance level on the brakes, in my experience. And that's even with the upgraded brakes on the Dark Wolf Ultra. But on this, every step makes a huge difference. You can really dial it in to exactly what you want it to do, to your style of casting, maybe to the type of rod that it's on, whatever it is. So that's a plus and a minus, right? It makes it harder to get dialed in initially, but it makes it easier to get it for maximum performance. And that's sort of where I've ended up with it. It's taught me to be better at dialing in my reels. And I feel like that's showing because as I've bought a couple other reels, I've had a much better go right off the bat with them. And maybe the Aldebaran made me a better caster, I'm not sure. But to go back on to the different rods that I used, so I started with it on the Limerin Wind Shadow because this reel was supposed to do 1 gram, maybe even sub 1 gram well. In my experience, I feel like for my skill level, and time I didn't really have it completely figured out, so I'll have to go back and try it again on really light weight setups, like 1 gram or less. I think the Dark Wolf Ultra was a little bit better, maybe because it was a little bit more forgiving, and that could be the answer. But it still did well. I mean, I caught a nice bass on a little Nico waxworm. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And then I said, okay, well, let me see if I can put it on a rod that can handle a little bit bigger bass, a little bit bigger fish. I wanted to get into a situation where I really started testing the drag and really try to dial it in with a lot of different type of baits. So I put it, the next rod that I had it on was I've even forgotten the name of it. I didn't like it so much. The Major Craft Benkei. And while it was on that rod, that was probably like trips 3 to 5 or so where I had the Aldebaran on the Benkei. I actually didn't like the reel at all. I was thinking, okay, this isn't worth the money. In fact, I think I commented on one of my previous videos to one of you guys. I wasn't sure I was going to hold on to it. I wasn't sure it was the right reel for me. You know, I was looking into just trying to understand the Aldebaran a little bit better, and I found an older video of the initial Aldebaran, like the very first one as far as I understand it, and they had paired it with this X-Pride rod. And when I started looking into the specs on the X-Pride rod, it was like 5 to 15 grams. Like, I'm like, well, that's not what I understand BFS to be from a lot of the, you know, the current, say, American forums, US forums. You know, everybody's focused on this really lightweight, 1 to 3 grams. So 5 to 15 grams, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's like, I barely threw over 15 grams on any of my other stuff ever. I thought, well, if I can find one of those rods, I'll give that a try. So I found one, and it completely changed this reel for me. Part of it was I got the reel dialed in a little bit better. Right now, I feel like this thing is magic. And that's been my experience over the years, even with spinning setups, that when you get the right reel paired with the right rod, and maybe even the right line, all of a sudden things become effortless and the performance goes to this next level. It's like the sum of all of them is greater than the individual parts, and you get this synergy and things just start working. That's where I'm at now with the Aldebaran. This thing is amazing. The drag is very smooth. There's one other reel that I just got that I don't think long-term compares to the Aldebaran, but it also has a nice smooth drag. The drag on the Aldebaran is very smooth. It does have a clicking drag. It's not a real strong audible click, but you can hear it when you're fighting a fish. You know, especially if you've got the reel up a little high, you're trying to keep the right pressure on the fish. You hear it pulling out, but it's so smooth that it's just like a, you know, it's usually a gradual, but you know, fish makes a nice run, it'll burn a little bit, but it's not that screaming drag, but it's very smooth. I've never felt like this rod and reel combo with the drag was being a problem. There's been a couple fish where I thought maybe the drag was set light, and actually what it was is the fish was just it was a strong fish making a really nice run, because then on the next fish I'd catch one and the drag was performing exactly as it normally would. So it seems to respond well to different fish. Casting wise, you know, right now I've got the Whopper Plopper 90 on here. I've thrown half ounce chatterbaits on this. I think I even at one point I had a 3/4 ounce jig. It might have been a half ounce jig, but I've also thrown down to like 1.5 grams on this particular setup. So even though the rod is rated for 5 to 15, I think this is one of those that, you know, the rod really can handle just about anything you could throw at it that would be in your bait finesse range. It doesn't seem to do the sub 1 gram. You know, maybe under the perfect conditions, a little bit of wind at your back or something, or maybe in free spool, you know, where you put the brakes at 0 and you're just using your thumb to control it. Maybe then it works well. The color, I know early on when it was announced, a lot of people didn't like the color, and the design. Some people call it the Ugly Baron. But honestly, I'm a fan of blue to begin with. But once I put it on this X-Pride rod, it's almost, and this wouldn't surprise me, but it's almost like there has been a design continuum from the initial Aldebaran until now. So I think that's 10 years or so. I think the first one came out in around 2013, because this is one of the first generation X-Pride rods, and the paint design still matches today's reel. Maybe I just got lucky, but maybe there is some intentionality there where they're basically, you know, trying to match these products up so that they do look good together for those of us who at least pay attention to it. I don't care. I'm fishing some really ugly setups right now. This is one absolutely gorgeous setup. And I even commented on it, I think the first time I had it out, when the sun was hitting it, you know, how nice that actually looked in the sun, and how well the combo pairs. I really debated whether or not I was going to buy any more rod and reel combos for a while. You know, I decided not to buy the Gecko Bijan right away because I was starting to fall in love with this one so much. You know, I don't know what else I need to say. Casting distance is good. It's maybe not the longest casting reel, but it's pretty solid. I mean, I don't find myself ever really thinking like, oh, I wish this thing would cast farther. And I also don't recall ever like really trying to say, well, how far can I chuck this thing out there? It throws 4 gram as far as I need it to. So, you know, 4 gram lures rather. With the Whopper Plopper 90 on this rod with that reel, it's just like, you know, I didn't have to think about it. And it allowed me to get very precise. And I did overcast a few times and get it into the weeds on the bank. But as I get it dialed in, it really started casting really well. And I felt like it was one of the first times where I really started getting to that precision casting that Bait Finesses is known for. And again, that's partly probably my skill improving, but it's definitely got to be a component of the reel and the combo. One negative that I do want to mention is that from time to time, when I go to engage the reel, and I'll find some video clips where you can hear me sort of adjusting it. That's a good size smallie, nice and dark. Every once in a while it doesn't engage all the way, and that's a little annoying. Take a break here. Got this all twisted up now. So that's probably the only real negative that I have on the reel. You know, I didn't really try to clean it up, but it's been through a lot. My brakes are currently set on like 4.2 or 4.4. This reel has performed flawlessly. I've had it in the water. It got really grungy one day when I got caught in the rain. I was riding on like a limestone path. I didn't think about it, but it was sort of low on the bike, and I rinsed it out, oiled it up with a little bit of Shimano BFS oil, and it's been perfectly fine ever since. That thumb bar not re-engaging all the way, it could be a lubrication issue, but it's been there almost from the beginning. And so it's a little bit of an annoyance, but there's probably a little bit of tuning that I can do, but I'm not the kind of person to really dig into my reels all that much. It hasn't been enough to really cause me to say, okay, I'm not going to use this reel anymore. So it's not that big of a deal. I'm not sure there's anything else to say other than, is it worth it? I think 100%. If $350 for a reel is in your budget, or you can even stretch maybe from $250 or $275 to $350, I would do it. If you find one used for under that, that's, you know, been well taken care of, but I mean, again, they're not that old, they just came out, I would get it. Right now I can't see in this range or below, I can't see me liking another reel better. In the fall or maybe next spring, I may move up into that around the 500 range and try some of the next level reels. You know, maybe the Daiwa Steez, maybe the Conquest BFS. You know, get into a couple of those kind of reels. Then maybe I find something that I like better than this. But right now, this is arguably, you know, it might be the best reel out there. Maybe the looks aren't for everybody. I sort of like the light blue look. And again, I like the versatility, especially on this rod. And that may be some of the challenge that I have if I decide to get a small, you know, handful of this reel. Does it give me the same feeling on a lot of different rods? Now, it did great on the Wind Shadow, and I think if I dial it in, so that's like the opposite end of the spectrum. It can't do much over about 5 gram weight, and it'll throw a 1 gram or a 3/4 gram, maybe even a 1/2 gram pretty well. It's one of the Whippy fiberglass flick rods. It takes a little bit of time. If you're not 100% fluent in setting up a Shimano BFS reel, you know, maybe you don't love it right off the bat, because that might be the only other downfall, and I talked about it a couple times. It's not the easiest reel, at least it wasn't for me, to get dialed in. But once it is, honestly, I can't remember the last time I touched the brakes. I switch between different things, and maybe I give it 1 or 2 clicks. But you can see with my style, I'm running the brakes at like 4 point something out of 6. I rely on the brakes a ton. I could definitely get more distance but I don't feel like I need it. Ooh, look at that. We're getting towards the end of that one. This thing casts a mile. If I ran the brakes a little bit lower and I had a smoother casting motion, I use my thumb maybe a little bit more. But I do let these modern reels do a lot of the work for me, and that just makes fishing more fun. If you have more skills, I think this is an even better reel for you. I don't think you can have much less than I have. Yeah, whether you're a beginner, whether you're skilled, I think the Aldebaran, the 22 Aldebaran from Shimano, I think it's an amazing reel. This review's been a long time coming, so I appreciate those who have sort of waited for it. I'd like your feedback on it. If you've tried it, do you want to try it? Hey, and if you're anywhere near me and you want to try it, I'm happy to, let's go fishing sometimes, and I'll bring a bunch of my rod and reel setups, and you can try whatever you want. I think that would be an amazing video if I could have somebody come and say, hey, just try out some of the gear, and what are your opinions on it compared to mine? If you're up for that, let me know too. That's it. I mean, this is the Shimano Aldebaran 22. It is by far my favorite reel at this point, and I'm trying to take a little bit of the summer and work with a couple other new rod and reel setups, but there will definitely be some days where I'll take that out just because I don't want to fiddle with something different. I just want to go out and enjoy the fishing, and so you'll probably see a few videos on that, and then definitely in the fall the Aldebaran will start showing up in more videos. So I think I got mine from Digitaka. Japan Lure Shop is also a great source for them. I get reels from both of those places. So thanks for watching. Can't recommend this one enough. If 350 is anywhere near your budget, I would say go for it. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.